Hey everybody, it's our third lesson, the American Dream Unit, supplemental materials that would go with the Great Gatsby. And we're going to talk about people who cheat, whether it be on a spouse or just in general, and why they do it, and sort of these preconceived notions that we have about morals and ethics, and how studies have determined that people that you think would never engage in immoral or illegal behavior will do it, especially when they think nobody's looking. All right, so after chapter 3 is when I normally give this material and we have this lesson. And it's given in relation to the character of Jordan. Now, if you've been able to read the book, you know who Jordan is. And if you haven't, I'm going to give you a brief overview of Jordan. Jordan is the girlfriend of the narrator, Nick. And Nick is a very straight-laced guy. He's very honest. As a matter of fact, at the end of chapter 3, Nick says, everyone suspects himself of at least one of the cardinal virtues, and this is mine. I am one of the few honest people that I have ever known. So that's what Nick says about himself. And that's not braggadocious. That's just what Nick thinks. He's honest, and it's parallels with his girlfriend, Jordan. He's having a little bit of a hard time wrapping his head around how she is, because here in the book, he's discovered that she's cheated at a lot of things, and she really doesn't sort of care about other people's feelings, and she's a liar. And here, right before Nick says that, he's having a conversation with her, and it's just a random thing, and she almost like has a wreck because she's being irresponsible, and she almost runs into somebody. And so Nick tells her, "You're a rotten driver. Either you ought to be more careful or you oughtn't drive at all." "Well, I am careful," Jordan says. "No, you're not." "Well, other people are," she said lightly. "What's that got to do with it?" "Well, they'll get out of my way," she insisted. "It takes two to make an accident." "Well, suppose you met somebody just as careless as yourself." "Oh, I hope I never will," she answered. "I hate careless people. That's why I like you." All right, so here's the point, is that Jordan doesn't really care what happens to other people. She expects people to get out of her way. Whatever she wants is the way that it goes. And this kind of falls in line with the supplemental material if we can go over. Some psychiatrists, psychologists, they did a study on why people cheat, and would people cheat if they think people don't know what they're going to do, or they don't fit the common idea of what integrity is. My principal likes to say all the time, integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching. A lot of people don't do that. When no one's watching, they'll do the not right thing. All right, so we're going to go in here and we're going to go over the supplemental material. All right, everybody. This is our article today. Is There a Cheater's High by Romeo Vitelli, Ph.D. Ph.D. means doctor, but not doctor of medicine. That's M.D. Ph.D. is a doctor like of psychiatry, psychology, those kind of things. All right, so this guy wrote this article, and it says in his article, Romeo Vitelli, Ph.D., examines people like the con artist Frank Abagnale to determine whether or not the act of cheating and getting away with it can be a positive motivator. As you read, I ain't got to do that. All right, so basically, Frank Abagnale is a con artist. All right, started in the 50s all the way up into the 60s, maybe into the part of the 70s. And what he did was he was a counterfeiter. And the FBI chased him, couldn't find him. For years this went on. And they finally caught him. And he was so good at what he did, they ended up in a plea bargain type thing. They said, "You come help us. You come help us figure out, tell us what you did, how you did it, and you spot things, and you help us bust these things." And he did. And he made a living doing that. And a lot of the security measures that we have in place now were born out of his teachings to the FBI. They made a movie about his life called Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest you watch it. It's on Netflix. It's a pretty good movie. All right, so this article talks about, why do people cheat? Do they cheat? Do some of them get a high, almost from like alcohol or drugs or exercise? When you do things, it releases chemicals in your brain that makes you feel good. Exercise is considered a natural high, endorphins in your brain. And so here, cheaters, they're not putting any foreign substance in their body like alcohol or drugs, but they're actually doing something and getting this natural high. All right. So here he does a study. He talked about all kinds of things. He talks about victimless crimes, perceived victimless crimes. Like, so if you're doing insurance fraud or computer piracy, that means like downloading and stealing music or movies off the internet. It's perceived as a victimless crime. Now, it isn't, eventually it hurts somebody, but it's not the same as like, going and murdering somebody or, robbing somebody. Okay. So people, how do they relate to victimless crimes as opposed to immediate victim crimes? Is it guilt or shame that keeps people from doing these things? All right, down here. So he tested these folks, and we talked about what do people, he gives them scenarios and how would you react. And a lot of people were surprised by the things they would do. And let's move on down here to the bottom. What these studies suggest is that people can engage in unethical behavior for different reasons, whether for simple gain or the emotional high that getting away with something seems to bring. One interesting finding is that the study participants failed to predict how cheating would make them feel afterward. Though they assumed they would feel guilty, they often felt the opposite. Whether continued experience with the cheater's high would make people more likely to cheat again is something future researchers should investigate. And down here, this is the one I want to talk about right here. The last paragraph. Though we tend to associate things like the cheater's high with sociopathic behavior, it is more likely common than we care to believe. All right, so we'll talk about that word sociopathic. It gives you a definition down here in your footnotes. Sociopathic. The term sociopathic refers to a personality disorder that manifests itself in extreme antisocial attitudes and behavior and a lack of conscience and empathy. That's a big fancy way of saying people who only care about themselves and they don't care if their actions hurt other people. They do what they have to do to get ahead. So, example of a sociopath. You are up for a job promotion and you're against somebody else and you start a rumor, to get that person fired. You could get the promotion. You could ruin this person's life, but you don't feel any empathy at all. You don't care that you ruined their life. All you care about is getting ahead. That's considered sociopathic. You only care about yourself. Study for the FBI says that 1 in 10 people is a sociopath. 1 in 10 people is a sociopath, which is 1% of the American population, and 20% of the people incarcerated in prison are sociopaths. So while we think that, sociopaths are evil, this study determined that people will cheat and steal if they think that they won't get caught. So necessarily, you don't have to be a sociopath, a criminal, to do illegal things. All right, let's move on to here to our multiple choice questions. All right, so which of the following best describes a central idea of the text? The answer to number 1 is B. Feelings of joy after acting unethically may be a motivation factor in cheating, stealing, and deception. In other words, I'm going to go and shoplift something. I'm not going to go and shoplift something. Let's say, for example, this person is going to go and shoplift something. They do it not necessarily because they need whatever they're stealing, but because it will give them this euphoric type high of, I got away with it. Okay? Number 2, which of the following best summarizes why the author dismisses the concept of guilt? Now, what I mean by that concept of guilt in behavior is that we have this idea, and if you're one of these people who wouldn't do something because you'd feel guilty even though nobody knew about it. You don't understand this. It's kind of like introverts and extroverts. An extrovert can never understand why somebody would not want to go out. And an introvert can never understand why somebody would want to go out. You can't make other people see how you feel if you're a certain way. And so the concept of guilt to some people is like, well, yeah, I would never do that because I would feel bad about it. But here, the author says that a lot of people don't feel that. So which of the following best summarizes why the author dismisses the concept of guilt? The answer to number 2 is D. The author mentions guilt as a potential deterrent to acting unethically. But based on crime statistics and recent published studies, that theory is incomplete. It goes to the idea of the death penalty. All right? People say the death penalty is a deterrent, and then other people say, no, it's not. All right? It's the idea here. You really can't see the other person's point of view if you are so entrenched in your own ideas and biases and concepts. All right, number 3. This is a part A-B question. So whatever you answer in part A, you got to give backup here in part B. These are the kind of questions that you see on many EOCs or LEAP tests, part A, part B. These can be difficult because if you miss part A, chances are you're going to miss part B as well. All right, so number 3, the answer is A. What does the word astronomical most likely mean as used in paragraph 3? Extremely large. Astronomical. Big. All right. Astronomy. You heard the word astronomy. If you don't know what astronomy means, it's the study of the universe and stars. Astrodome. Astro large. All right. Astronomical. This is how they ask you vocabulary questions, not like give the definition of this word. They'll ask you for synonyms or antonyms. They do this exact same thing on the ACT. So if you haven't taken the ACT yet, when you get to the ACT, they'll ask you not necessarily what the definition means, but what's a synonym. It's kind of tricky. All right, number 4, which of the following best phrases supports the answer to part A? The answer to number 4 is D. Billions of dollars. I do a lesson, and I'll probably do it with y'all once we get to transcendentalism and Ralph Waldo Emerson about the concept of a billion. You can't understand how big a billion is. We want to be millionaires, and $1 million is a lot of money. We couldn't imagine it, but $1 billion is untold how we couldn't imagine it. Point of reference, 1 billion seconds ago. 1 billion seconds ago. So from the time I say 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 1 billion of those was the 1960s. It was the 1960s, 1 billion seconds ago. I say that you can't comprehend that, but that's how much a billion is. All right. Number 5. What does the section on the experiments conducted by the scientist contribute to the author's argument and or central ideas? All right, well, this goes back to, basically, to me, the central idea of this argument goes back to the sociopath comment. We have this idea that people who cheat and steal and lie are criminals, but they're not. I mean, yes, criminals do that, but the people that you see in the store, the people that are your neighbors and your friends, they may be just as likely to do those things as the people who are in jail. It's not strictly limited to the quote-unquote the bad people. The people we think are good can do just as bad things as the people that we think are not good. All right, down here, these are your opinions. These next questions. Why do you think people cheat? That's up to you. The article lines out some reasons. What are some other reasons that you think? All right. In your opinion, is guilt a strong emotion? This is an excellent question. The Scarlet Letter is a book that sometimes I teach, and at its core, it's how guilt affects some people but doesn't affect others. And number 3, the last one, hold on. There's 2 more. All right. Number 3, according to this article, study participants expected to feel guilt after cheating, but instead felt positive emotions. Why? In your opinion, what does this say about most people's morality? This is kind of what we talked about earlier. It's kind of repeating these. people who are quote unquote what you think would be good, are they exempt from doing bad things? And number 4, in the context of this passage, why do good people do bad things? Why do good people do bad things? Okay, so that's the third lesson about cheating and why people do it. Goes in relation to the character of Jordan and Nick saying to himself he's honest. Nick knows he's honest. Nick would feel guilty about doing the things that Jordan does with no thought to the consequences. So she seems to be a normal person, not a criminal, but she would do bad things, immoral things that Nick doesn't understand and Nick doesn't approve of and can't wrap his brain around how somebody could be that way because he's not. Okay, so next we're going to talk more about this Frank Abagnale guy in our 4th video. Until then, everyone be safe. It's a great day to be a warrior.